Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squad for boxing news and views from around the internet. Just who is the number one heavyweight in the world now? It's a question that fans have been asking. Deontay Wilder, his fans, they've been saying for a while he's the number one. Tyson Fury, his fans, have been saying he's the number one. But a decent chunk of fans had Anthony Joshua as the top dog ahead of his fight with Andy Ruiz Jr., which he lost. Comprehensively beaten by Ruiz Jr. So the question is, who is number one now? And yeah, it's sort of a bun fight for a lot of fans between Fury and Wilder. But according to BoxRec, see on screen here, according to them and their points-based system, as a result of his win over Anthony Joshua, Ruiz Jr. is now the number one heavyweight in the world. And the BoxRec system, we know it's not perfect. It's one of these things where, you get points for facing your opponent, and their points are based on who they've previously fought and their opponents and that sort of thing. But it is a good gauge of the quality of opposition that a fighter has been in with. So BoxRec, as a result of the win, have him at 752 points. I think before this fight, Anthony Joshua he's at 602 now fallen to third. Deontay Wilder is in second spot with Tyson Fury in fourth. And Fury is still well behind Joshua, 479 points as compared to 602. But ahead of this fight, I think Joshua might have been on something like 12 or 1,300 points. He was well out ahead of his rivals, division rivals, Fury and Wilder. Obviously, this loss to Andy Ruiz Jr. brings him well back to the pack. So Ruiz sitting atop the BoxRec rankings. Going to be a lot of debate and discussion about does one win make him the best in the world? And this is only just one measure. Obviously, you have to take other things into consideration. And ahead of this fight, I said I couldn't rate Ruiz in the top 10 because he hadn't had the fights and the activity and the opposition, in my view, to justify it. And even ahead of this, he wasn't in BoxRec's top 10. It's one of those things where, one fight, does that make your career? And I guess for Tyson Fury, you could argue, well, it made his career to some extent with Vladimir Klitschko. Obviously, he's had the draw since with Wilder. But who is number one? Do a majority of fans really believe that Andy Ruiz Jr. is now the number one heavyweight in the world? I think we can all agree that Andy Ruiz Jr. is clearly a very good heavyweight, an elite heavyweight. He's just proven himself against one of the best in the division. So Andy Ruiz Jr. does deserve to be, I think, probably somewhere at least in the top 10, more likely top 5. But number one, I think that's where fans will have the discussion. I think Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury can lay a claim to being the number one heavyweight in the world. And it's not backed up there with Tyson Fury at number 4, and he's well below Wilder and Joshua. But, clearly against Deontay Wilder, he looked good, but he's only had a couple of fights since he came back in mid-2018. And those fights really didn't do much for his profile or, the way that fans regarded him because they were low-level comeback fights. It's the Wilder fight where he really made his name again, boxing Deontay Wilder over 12 rounds, getting a draw, but a very controversial draw. Many people thought that he won. Deontay Wilder, meanwhile, he's obviously been more active than Fury in the past couple of years. He's had a number of decent, middling contender level wins before having a notable signature win back in March 2018 against Luis Ortiz, who you see here is in 8th position. He is in the top 10 on the BoxRec rankings. And he's going to be facing Ortiz again. So if he beats Ortiz again, he gets more points. So he will keep going up these rankings. But it also, an Ortiz win carries, just in general with fans, a fair degree of currency. Maybe not as much as the first time around when Ortiz was unbeaten and regarded as an avoided fighter who Deontay Wilder, was looking to stop, and ultimately he did. One of these cases, I think, you can argue the toss over all sorts of measures about who would be the best. My personal opinion on this thing, I can't have Andy Ruiz Jr. as number one. But I think he's in the top 3, top 4. I think we can put him there now after this win over Joshua. It's really a bit of a shuffling of the deck of these different names, just based on activity and who they've been facing. And bear in mind, Fury's only had the one significant fight since his comeback. I think you have to give number 1 to Deontay Wilder. I don't like everything that Deontay Wilder says out in public. I think some people have been getting a bit over the top in terms of they think I don't like Wilder as a fighter because of the statements that he makes. But people need to sort of separate the two. Wilder is a fantastic guy to watch in the ring. He's an excitement machine with the equalizer of the right hand. I don't have to like everything that he says out of the ring. And if you've been following this channel for any length of time, you know that if someone says something silly, I'm going to call them out on it. I'm going to say something about it. And if you can't handle that, well, maybe that's not the channel for you. But all of these guys, if they do something silly or say something silly, I'm going to comment on it. It's just, this is just what I do on this channel. I talk heavyweight boxing, and no one is in or out of my radar on these things. Andy Ruiz Jr. deserves to be considered an elite fighter now, in my view. Number one, I'm not so sure. BoxRec on their point system, which, isn't infallible. It's not the be-all and end-all. It's a decent measure, and it tells you, the opposition you've been facing is decent, but he gets a lot of credit from the system based off the one win. He's, as you can see here, up 13 places according to BoxRec. So this win has really stacked things in his favor about how many points he gets. I think ahead of this, he was, if he was up 13 places, so we look at it here, effectively he picked up something like 500 points, 600 points, something like that, an incredible amount. So Joshua's opposition, who'd head fought before, guys like Dillian White, Alexander Povetkin, Joseph Parker, you can see them all here in the top 10. Those wins carry a lot of weight. Obviously Ruiz has picked up that weight and added it to his resume, and now he's number one. But I think Deontay Wilder, just off the sort of way that I sum up activity and, the wins, that sort of thing, I think he has to be considered the number one heavyweight right now. And that's, maybe that's a little unfair to Tyson Fury to some extent, because had he have got that win against Deontay Wilder back in December, I think a lot of us would have said, yeah, Fury is the number one. But, results are results. You can't change them. It has to be definitive, and there was some controversy with that fight. I thought he won, but the judges disagreed and gave it a draw. Who do you have as your number one? Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, Andy Ruiz Jr. Who deserves to be number one? Or does Anthony Joshua still deserve to be in the conversation? Or is he out of that conversation now because of that loss? Let me know. Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.